We would rotate through at Camp Reed doing border patrol for 2 weeks at a time on the Czechoslovakian border. I served in the United States Army from 1988 to 1992. Our main focus was on patrolling the border at the end of the Cold War. We didn't know it was the end of the Cold War, but we knew the Cold War was coming to an end. Not when we were up there, but when it happened quickly. But that was our main responsibility, was we were part of the, democracy versus communism. It was no joke. I mean, when you went up on border patrol, it was no joke. I think our last border camp tour was like September of '89. In November was when communism, that's when it started. The movement started, and we never went back. And by June, inside the city of Berlin, Checkpoint Charlie was non-existent. I mean, once the wall came down, it happened fast. German reunification started in late '90, and by March of '91, it was complete. East had reunited with West, but people were just flooding over because they were running. I mean, they were running from communism because the door was open. And after living, the oppressed life that they had, it was so bizarre to see, like, these were our quote-unquote enemies. Well, they're just people trying to get out of a living hell. I mean, you could just drive down the Autobahn, or you could see like a crowded little tent city set up for a weekend at a campground along the Autobahn, and you knew that was people running from communism. I was in Berlin the weekend they closed Checkpoint Charlie, by luck, not by design. And to me, at the time, I remember distinctly it being like going from color to black and white. That zone in between the killing fields, and the towers were still up. The wall was almost all down. It was a shell of itself, but you could walk along it, and it was very bizarre. But it was clear that the Cold War was over. But it was a joy to watch. You could still feel, smell, and taste the oppression, but you didn't have to experience it. This was not direct conflict. This was indirect conflict, and that takes a lot of work. I mean, I was in Operation Desert Storm. It's 100 hours, but this was 3 decades of passive strength, and that's a lot of work. And it was a very serious mission, and I think it proves something, that while I'm not a war guy, that direct conflict has a purpose, but its purpose is way less served. The demise of communism through indirect conflict from the end of World War II all the way up until the late 80s. I think the indirect strength that the West was willing to show actually brought down the East.